Hey, welcome to Creative Block. We're your host, Gene.
And V, we interview people in creative industries about their life, work, and hobbies while we doodle jam.
We asked people on Twitter if they had specific topics they wanted us to discuss, as well as some drawing prompts.
And today with us, we have Hunter Hancock. Hey!
Hi.
Hello. How you guys doing?
Aka Meatcanyon, Aka Papa Meat, Aka, I don't know. What else you got?
Hunter is usually a good one. Use that.
You have a lot of meat-themed names.
Yeah. That's where the brand has taken me.
That's where the brand is taken. That's where the meat has taken you. Tell us who you are and what you do.
Yeah, my name is Hunter Hancock. I'm Meatcanyon. I do just like short indie animations for YouTube, usually in the humor and like weird cringe horror aspects of the internet.
Yeah.
I love your animations so much because, first of all, I love existential horror. And what's really interesting with your videos is that it's, you see the thumbnail and you're like, oh, this is just going to be like horror, kind of like how you expected it to turn out, but it's not. You always have this crazy twist that I'm not expecting. Like I saw the lasagna Garfield and I'm like, ooh, I love this subreddit. I'm sorry, John. And you took it in a direction that I had no idea. So
many great posts on that subreddit. I'm sorry, John. And I love the lore of I'm sorry, John. And that was a huge thing too, is like, oh, I feel like and it's awesome. I'm not saying that's overdone or anything, but I'm like, how can I subvert expectations with the whole Garfield trope of being like an eldritch horror and stuff. And I like the idea of, and I just saw Martyrs, which is a French horror film. I don't know if you guys watch horror.
No,
but,
what is it?
It's just like a crazy movie about like this company that like captures people and they hold them captive and they basically like, it's very odd. Okay. Like it's gonna sound very weird.
What's the name of it again?
It's called Martyrs.
Martyrs? How'd you spell it?
Like M-A-R, was it M-A-R-T or M-A-Y-T-R-S, right?
Oh,
Martyrs.
I see.
This has become a spelling bee now.
Yeah, there we go. But the whole movie's just weird. It's about like people they hold people and they torture them and put them basically to the brink of death. But it's like so they can see like I don't know God and stuff. It's supposed to be like
that sounds up my alley.
Yeah, it's very odd. It's really cool and really well done. But I just saw that, and I like the aspect of like. The like held captive and stuff aspect of thing and that kind of psychological thriller aspect, and I really like the idea of like John being this completely schizophrenic weird man who like obsesses on bringing new animals into his home, but they're actually people and stuff, and he talks to them like animals, and it felt like just a fun way to take that whole scenario.
Sure.
And the styles change really drives it home. It's so, I don't know. I was like, damn, this is so clever. But let's kind of like take it back to when, as a kid, what was your relationship to art, storytelling? Were you the kind of kid that was always drawing, or did you kind of stumble into animation? What was your...
Yeah, I mean, I had always doodled and stuff, I think like growing up, I grew up in Kearney, Missouri, which is like a very small cattle town in Missouri, and it's obviously not a huge art scene and stuff, and so my entire experience was very limited to just like media that I would watch or see on late night television and stuff, and it started with like Cartoon Network, and I just liked the camaraderie of everything. And especially like whenever I got a little older into like junior high, like watching South Park or like a new Family Guy episode, and then going to school, and it felt like everybody, didn't matter who you were, where you're from, whatever you're doing, it seems like people had that kind of like love for the same thing. And I just liked that aspect of like bringing people together in a weird way through these tunes. And I always thought it was cool. So it started off with kind of like just that initial love, and I didn't have internet until I was in college. So I just had like, Shonen Jump books that I'd get from like Borders bookstore and stuff. And I'd get like just that kind of stuff to be like, oh, I'm going to doodle. But I wouldn't say anything like I knew anything about craft or had any knowledge on any of that kind of stuff. But yeah.
Do you feel like you were maybe like drawing comics or cartoons and showing your friends, or was this something that you were doing for yourself or just posting on the internet? Kind of what was the way you were sharing your art?
Yeah, I made a comic book, and I would write books in school, and I'd sell them.
Hell yeah!
That's how I
got
kind
that
of
hustle.
Nice. Yes.
Yeah, this deal of just like really stupid, cheap things that would just sell, and it felt like a weird like rite of passage or something like that. Of like, yeah, that person bought my book, that's sweet, or whatever. But yeah, I mean, I think it was a mixture of both. Like, I mean, I just enjoyed doing it as as just a form of like spending time. It's very therapeutic, I think, and but I also enjoyed the aspect of like having my friends be like, oh, that's awesome, and that was like motivating in a way too, of like having that kind of encouragement from people that you vibe with at that age. I think is really important, because I think so many people are like, you know, kids suck, they're the worst. They're just like ages 13 to 16 I think is probably the worst time.
Absolute
like
hell.
just like as a not only like through experience, but just also like you as a person who people think that like kids just think they know everything and they're just like little shitheads and stuff. So to have a group of friends that like appreciate what you do and not feel like you're, I don't know, being lame or any of that regard. So it's always cool.
Definitely.
No, for real. I think that's like something that's like really important. Like I think in like finding your community early on, whether it's in real life or on the internet, I've always found that to be with people we interviewed something that was really strong and kind of motivating to keep creating, because I don't think we create in the void.
No.
we like to have people look at our stuff. Do you when did you realize you wanted to pursue cartooning or making animation?
Probably like when I was a sophomore in high school, I really got obsessed with like Adult Swim, and specifically like the 15-minute block shows. Like Metalocalypse is really big for me. And like I think like really short, palpable things that didn't feel so I get not to say network, because I really didn't know what that meant, but it just felt different, and it felt like easily accessible, and I liked the minimalist aspect of it. Like it didn't feel like it was something where I was like, man, I would love to just like write something and just have like people sit around and talk with it. And that was like a style that I just really gravitated towards, especially like King of the Hill or like just like weird, just like really nice character shows and stuff. So I would say like maybe like when I was around like sophomore year of high school is whenever I was like really like, man, I really want to figure out how to do this. But once again, I didn't have internet, so it was just like totally like out in the middle of the void with trying to figure out what the hell to do with any of that animation stuff.
When did you go online? Like around what age?
18 when I went to college.
Damn.
That's really interesting, because how old are you right now?
I'm 28.
Man,
You're young, so that seems like a late start in the internet game.
It was just one of those things. My family and stuff just didn't have internet in our area. Like I grew up, I'm not trying to say I was like on horseback riding to school or anything, but it was like one of those things where it was like we had dish satellite, and it was like, why even bother getting their terrible satellite internet and stuff. And I had like friends that had internet, so I knew what like Tourette's guy was and stuff, but like I didn't have it to where I could be like, openly do it. And if I was, it was spending time playing like online, Call of Duty or something like that with my friends or something at their house. But yeah, it wasn't really until like college where I even knew what sophomore year of college where I found out what even like Newgrounds was.
Oh wow,
and
interesting.
Stuff. And by that time it was like, it seemed like so many of those people were gone off that site. Not like gone off the site, but it felt like YouTube was the kind of place where those people were going. And even by that time, people were like, YouTube sucks.
Yeah.
For animation, fuck this website, all that kind of stuff.
It didn't take long, Well, it's interesting, yeah, because I feel like it feels like your work is such an extension of that scene, and the fact that it came from a different place, but you still kind of arrived at that is interesting to me. Like to be fair, like we all share the same influence, like you said, it's all the Adult Swim stuff, and so like, I get that, I get where your sort of influence comes from, but. I don't know. I would have guessed that you were on Newgrounds very early on, and so I guess I
was on Newgrounds, but I did, whenever I found out about it, I was like obsessed with like doing the rounds of like, so obviously like, you know, Zach,
sure,
and like Oni and all those guys, of course, like I obviously have like such a huge love and admiration for them, and that was whenever it was like in college, whenever you saw people, especially online, doing stuff, or even like Felix Colgrave or like all of these people where you're like, man, I don't even have to go through I could just make this with my friends, and that became a more realistic route. But all in all, it was always like I feel like I still always just had that prize of like always being like, man, I gotta get into the end. I'd be so happy, and that's how my whole life has been of like, man, I'm gonna be so happy whenever if I can work at Adult Swim or something.
that never ends.
Yeah, so funny. It's true. There is a little bit of that. The like, I'm gonna be so happy when this thing happens, and then as you grow up, greener. Yeah, you have to learn that like enjoying the process and stuff. I want to kind of talk about a little bit about college, because you did go to college for art, and where was that, and kind of how was your experience with it?
I went to Kansas City Art Institute. It's not the Art Institute. It's like chain here in America. It's just like a private school in Kansas City. But Kansas City Art Institute, it was fine. I mean, like it's very conceptually based. It's not like Cal Arts where it's practical, I think, for what I was wanting to do. And I think that I mean, obviously, if I can go back, I tell everybody, and you know, people, viewers, and stuff can take this with a grain of salt. Or you guys can rebuke this, but anytime people are like, "Oh, if you know, I'm getting ready to go to school, I don't know what to go to, I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing." The only advice I ever give is I'm just like, think it over, because God, just like college debt sucks, and it's just one of those things where I'm like, you know, take $10,000 loan, put that towards rent, and then just like watch YouTube tutorials or watch like find a way to practice it, and then like if you're going to take out a loan, make it to where you can survive, and then it's on a fixed rate and stuff to where you can work a job and slowly pay it off, but like you can live comfortably, you can get your groceries, all that kind of stuff, while still being able to dedicate just this huge chunk of time to the actual craft of what you're trying to accomplish and do. And that's something I wish I would have kind of known, because that's like you know, the school system right now, they're just like, you're 18 years old, you want to be $50,000 in debt, and you're just like, God, yes, I do.
That's true. I think, and that's like, I like that you're touching on the subject. This is like a question that we get a lot. I mean, back when I was on Tumblr, and people would DM saying like, I'm gonna graduate from high school, what should I do? I don't want to be in debt. And it's like, it's true. It's like art school is so pricey. I wanted to kind of piggyback off that notion you touched on, which is the college you attended was very conceptual. And I think that's interesting, because when I watch your cartoons, I think they're very conceptual. Even your parodies, like you could watch them and be like, it's just a parody cartoon. But no, like I can always tell that there's a lot of thought that's put into the cartoon, and there's like a theme and a concept behind it. How was it? How would you define concept from kind of your experience through college? Kind of what did your teachers kind of like give you, I guess, related to that? Because it feels more art, like your animation feels more artsy than craft, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
you know?
no, yeah, I mean,
more
yeah,
higher
100%.
Art, you know?
Yeah, no, and I think that's 100% fair. I think that like, I just really like, one thing that I took away from college was just the, God, really, I don't even know if it was college. I think I just fell in love with like horror. And I think I fell in love with just the aspect of like what moves people. And I had a teacher that was like, why does this, you know, like scene breakdowns and stuff, and like understanding like visual emotional like translation through a viewer. What do you want to make your viewer feel? You know, like those kind of like conceptual questions that I think are like really important, because it's very easy, I think, a lot of the time, and it's fun to just be like, oh, I just want to make them laugh or be silly and stuff. But it's like, how can you like through comedy even, how can you make someone like feel sad? How can you make someone feel scared, cringing, like all these kind of things? And I think that's like such a powerful tool with like, especially like visual and like video mediums of like you do kind of have that power, and you are in that position of control. It's just about like having a clear vision and just like being kind of like comfortable with what you're trying to say and what you're trying to present to the viewer.
Yeah, well, it adds those layers, right? Because like comedy isn't hard. You can make a fart and make a lot of people laugh, but it's like, but I think that having those other layers that you're putting in, it gives it this depth and this like V said, it's the art of it that I think really makes it stand out. Like I think that's, and I think that what comes through is the thought and the intention, and like the way that you're describing it, it makes sense that you're consciously putting those things in there. I think it's cool.
Yeah, always. And, you know, the thing too is like it might be easy to make people laugh, but to like write a really like great joke that's memorable, that is like unique to you, it makes comedy not feel cheap, and it makes it feel like something that's like just incredibly valuable. And it kind of like, I think, stands that test of time. And you see that with like even like children's shows like, you know, SpongeBob, and all these kinds of things where you're just like, my God, even like today, you can just sit down and just enjoy it for what it is.
Yeah,
that's so funny that you say that, because I've been like watching some SpongeBob recently, and I was just like trying to, because someone on Twitter once mentioned the difference between modern cartoons and not cartoons from the like 90s, early 2000, and kind of like how they were different. And I was like, I guess they are different. And
yeah, storyboard based for sure, artist driven and stuff. Like it has like just such a unique feel and tone to it that I think gets lost a little bit, especially with like celebrity shows coming out. Like it just feels like, oh, I'm a celebrity, and it's just like, I forgot who it was. I mean, I won't name drop, obviously, but I saw some celebrity, and they were just like, yeah, I just wanted to make a cartoon. It's like, I'm glad that's so easy for you.
Yeah, that shit drives me.
You get to come in, and Netflix is just like, please, yes, please, God.
Yeah. And it takes away opportunities from people who have busted their ass for it like their whole lives, and it's just like,
yeah. Well, and that's just, you know, and the kind of visual culture we're in now too. And I mean, culture, like just people enjoy being kind of spoon-fed the same stuff, and being like having that kind of formulaic feel of something that always feels reminiscent, which is something that I capitalize on with parodies and stuff, is the getting an audience that's just like, oh, I don't really want to explore anything new. Oh, here's my favorite show, and then only to like flip it on them. But that's just kind of, I feel like, where we're at with movies and everything too.
Well,
I know what. It's funny because when you talk about your parodies, I don't know, I could be wrong, but I feel like I hear in your voice sometimes a little bit of a like, I know it's a parody, but I think they're great. You know, like
no, I mean,
you know, like there's like so much thought. It's like, okay, it's a jumping point, sure. Like you're putting those cartoons on YouTube, and you have to work with the algorithm. And I kind of want to talk about that later as well, because I like that you gave the algorithm a name. That's really funny to me. But yeah, like I don't know, like kind of, I feel like you have this love and hate relationship with parodies. Like
I do. I think it's just because of the innate. I mean, like with any artist, I think that you will always compare yourself to others, and you will compare yourself to people in your field. I mean, like what you aspire to be, all these things. And sometimes when you feel like you're taking a bit of a cheaper route, like a parody or something like that, it does feel like, at the same time, you have to be like, yeah, I mean, I get it. And like, and I do try to go as best as I can above and beyond to make it feel less and less like a parody and something that has like that kind of like, you know, love and effort that's put into it. But, you know, I mean, I'm hit by the same kind of shit that I'm sure everybody is, of just like, oh, I wish I was as cool as this person and I could do, you know, that kind of feeling.
Okay.
But it's, it is love hate, because it's given me so much of my life, and it's made me, I mean, I feel like a more competent artist, director, all that kind of stuff, and even just socially, it's helped me. And so I owe it so much, but at the same time, it's something that it does feel like golden shackles a lot of the time or something.
Interesting.
It feels,
Yeah, that's really interesting that you say that. I kind of want to explore that a little bit, because sometimes working in the industry, that is a little bit how I feel. You know, it's like, this is so great. I get a paycheck every week. It's amazing. And I work with extremely talented people and everybody's nice. And at the same time, it's like, I can't do 100% what I want to do because I'm working for a team.
right.
What are the golden shackles for you?
I think it's just that, especially online and like YouTube and stuff that I found is that people, I mean, like, to have somebody care about you as a person is so far and in between. And that's not to like complain, but it's more just like the reality of it. Like if I sat there and I was like, man, I'm going to spend all this time working on this project that I'm very happy with, and if it's not the thing that you've built your fan base on, they're not going to care, and they're not going to like really want to see it. So you have to kind of like build that trust with them over time, and you kind of have to, you know, it's a give and pull situation. I have to do these parodies and stuff, which, you know, it's not like I'm you know, I have a gun to my head or anything, but it's like but it's something where it's just like, I'm very conscious that I'm like, yeah, I need to do this. I don't mind doing them. Is it the thing I want to be doing the most? Probably not, but that's just what it is. And in return, I'm able to do like, you know, able to try Monster Lab. I have no idea how to make a show. I have no idea really what I want to. I just know that I want to challenge myself and do something else. And that's what, you know, I wanted to do with that. And I had the platform to do it. So I think that those kind of golden shackles are just a thing of like, you earn trust with a viewer, and when in the viewers and people who are outside of art, where you're like, man, this just isn't as fulfilling as it used to be, they don't follow that with you. They're kind of there as like, no, like this is what I signed up for. This is what I want. So it's kind of like being able to pivot and then to have the direction and the inspiration that also gets them to pivot with you is a bit difficult. And I think that that's where those kind of shackles come in, because if you can't do that successfully, then you're kind of trapped in this area, unless you just want to kind of give up those analytics or those kind of views or that fan base a bit.
I think it doesn't really matter. Like, you know, I think it's really interesting, and I think that something because I'm always get jealous of people who can make a living off just, you know, doing animation online, whatever. But what I always find talking to you or Ross or even Worthy Kids is like, there is a degree still of like, you might not have a boss, you might not have an employer, but now you're like, the viewer is your boss. And so if your paycheck's dependent on what people want to see, like, you still have to deliver on that. And so like, it's a whole different set of challenges, and it takes a lot of courage, honestly, from where I'm sitting, to maintain that and be smart about it and figure out like, what is the compromise here? Like, and I'm curious, like, if there is sort of a metric in your head of like how many, you know, parody things you should do versus original, like, stuff, you know, is there sort of a process that you have for that?
You know, not really. I think it's just more of like, I've been trying to look at like, what are the golden projects that I want to do and how do I get there? I think it's kind of the big thing. Like on my second channel, I've been dabbling with like live action horror movies and stuff, and like maybe trying more traditional film stuff, or even like branching out and doing maybe more of like a Junji Ito kind of like short anthology horror series that isn't really based off of like any predecessor, like, or any like parody stuff. It's all just kind of like weird generalized human fears that I think would be really funny.
Not to be like a fangirl or anything, but before this interview, I was kind of thinking like, you're kind of like the Western version of Junji Ito in the sense that
I cannot take that compliment.
I know you can't, but for me, the way I see your work is kind of how I see, because I'm like, it's like the Western take on it, where it's just like because Junji Ito, I love his work because it's existential fears. It's like, okay, the art is also really scary and spooky, but it's not like, you know, it's manga, so he can't do jump scares or like,
Right.
you know, what a lot of the horror movie tropes rely on. So a lot of it is like existent, like, you know, like that meme that people have taken from his comics where it's like, this is my hole.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
but I feel like you do that like with your Nicocado. Oh my God. That was like, honestly, that was your animated piece that I was just like, holy moly, this is on another level. Because first of all,
thanks.
I was obsessed with Nicocado because
He's great.
He's great. There's so many things to be obsessed about with his channel because it's like, where does the reality start? Where does it end? Where is it a comedy? You don't.
Yeah,
like,
I mean, I definitely
you know?
don't want to give him as much praise as like Andy Kaufman, but it is this thing of like, I mean, it just, how I see it is he's completely knows what he's doing, whether it's like for entertainment sakes or if it's just for money. It's just this thing that's just like, in my eyes, admirable in the sense of like just staying to the bit. Now, I mean, like obviously it's like it's dangerous what he's doing, but at the same time, it's just like, I don't know. I just have such a such a fascination with that man. I just goddamn, I love him.
It's like, you know, you can't stop watching. It's kind of like when you're watching a show like Succession or whatever, and it's like it's that similar feeling of like, I don't want this to happen, but it's gonna happen. And anyway, you keep watching, and like I think your animated piece was so thoughtful, and
well, that's the biggest thing too. Like,
right,
is god damn, people on YouTube are just like ruthless. I mean, that fat bastard, you know, like all that kind of stuff. And they fucking lash out at everybody. And it's just like, it makes it a very interesting challenge too, where it's like, how can you make this guy sympathetic to where you're like, yeah, oh, look at him. Look how big he made him, whatever. And then by the end of it, you're just like, fuck, I feel like I feel bad. Like, I feel like I feel like, you know, my opinion of him, or like my, I don't know, outlook on him is just a little, I guess, more tame and not so aggressive or angry. And I tried doing that as well with like the Dream one, especially whenever I based it off real people. I'd really try my best to not, I really try my best not to, I don't know, just be totally malicious in any way. Like, it just doesn't feel fun. It feels like, it just feels kind of dirty, and it feels just like, just really lame, mean-spirited and stuff. So I really try to put a lot of thought into like what I'm trying to say when doing like a bit of a goof video on another YouTube persona.
Have you done it with other videos? I've mostly seen like cartoon parodies and then the Nicocado, but have you also like done with other YouTubers, like other?
Oh yeah. The first one I did was on Linus Tech Tips. I did one, which I don't think he was too happy with that. That was a bit of just like a random. That was like a random one where it was just like a PC review, but he like puts a baby into a blender and like blends it into a computer, and that's like the whole. It's just kind of like always like, and that was the thing, is just like taking people's structures of their videos that are always very formulaic and like, just like, I don't know, making a joke of it. I mean, it's like nothing that's like, you know, saying anything about him or anything. It's just mostly just people are recognizable of like, oh, I know Linus, I know that he does, you know, tech review stuff. So, just throwing that in there just felt kind of random and fun. But yeah, I don't think he fucked with that one very much. And then I did one with David Dobrik. I've done with like Shane Dawson during that whole
Shane, I need to watch that one. It's so funny.
Yeah, and then I did one with Dream.
I saw that one, but I don't know Dream as well, so I know you more than I know Dream.
Yeah, it's that's cool. It was the whole video was based around, he released this song called The Mask, and it felt very like, it kind of felt like a song that like a 15-year-old would write or something. Like it felt like a kid. I mean, he's a young guy and stuff, and it's one of those things, but my God, people just like tore him apart because he's a guy who has like, you know, I don't know, like 27 million
Huge following. Yeah.
He has a platform and stuff. He's just a huge guy on the internet. So of course people are going to, any chance they can, you know, they're going to tear into you. So that was another thing too, where I'm like, oh, I wonder if I could take the lyrics to that song and like the translation of like this weird, kind of hormonal, kind of feels like he's going through puberty, you know, kind of thing, all the kind of stereotypical things you do when you're a teenager and you're growing up and, you know, you're experiencing new things and shit. And I was like, it'd be cool to like do this like Cronenberg Kafka-esque like moth transformation, and like the guy doesn't show himself on the internet, so I thought it was like it'd be funny to also like make this story where it's like, oh, his dad is like actually taking care of like this dying child, and it's like his dad is the actual persona of the channel and stuff. And yeah, I don't know, it was the thought behind that. But yeah, I try to be, I don't know, courteous and stuff.
Yeah. Well,
oh, and I did Mr. Beast too. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, Mr. Beast.
Oh yeah, I think it shows. I think I don't know. I get that feeling in your animated pieces. They're like there's like thoughts and care, and like it's not mean, and it's always kind of like there's like this always this kind of like this like horrifying yet very truth based insight.
yeah, I try. I for sure try to make it as respectful as I can.
I wanted to ask, like, at which point, because you have like a team of people helping you to produce these, and at which point did you first start to feel like you needed help with finishing shorts? What was that sort of inciting moment?
I think it was like I was going in, I really started blowing up in like 2019, like the end of 2019 is, I think the beginning of 2020 I had 200,000 subs or something like that. And then I don't know, I just was getting to this spot where I was like, man, the videos could be better. I like really started to feel humbled with like, I'm trying to compete on YouTube. I want to compete. I want to feel like I'm getting better and the videos are getting better. And that's when I decided, is like, you know, I need to put assets into people that can do this better. Like I can't, you know, there's always going to be a better artist than you. I mean, always. It's just the way it is. Sure. So it's like having somebody come in and then finding out that like buying time is the most valuable thing that you can do as like a director, or like especially just like trying to maintain this like behemoth of like upload schedule. So that's whenever I was like, okay, well, we'll get the background guys in, we'll get, you know, you got to start off like one extra animator, and then it's just kind of blossom into like, now we have a really consistent team always of like usually three to four animators, usually a background artist or two, and then we have, you know, obviously compositor, and then somebody that does the score and somebody that does the audio engineer. So it's just this well-oiled machine now of just like everybody knows the pace. You know, you find some people that are reliable and that you can trust, and that they know the amount of work that goes into it too. So you're not blindsiding new people every other week. It's like kind of catering to this thing and giving them a budget to be happy with. And just kind of building those relationships. But yeah, I think it started pretty early on of just wanting to have videos. And then you saw it in the comments too. That was cool, of just people being like, God, these are just looking better. Like every video just feels like it's looking, you know, more professional, or just like easier to look at, sounds better, all that kind of stuff. It's just all that stuff was really important to me moving forward.
That's really cool. Do you have the same team? Are they always the same people, like, or mostly the same people that you get to help, that you get help from?
They're usually pretty consistent, but I mean, like over the years, like one of the main, I don't know if I can say this, but the one of the main guys is working. I have two people that have worked with me. They're on the Beavis and Butthead show. Cool. I don't know if we can say that or not, but the like, I mean, it's just been kind of a, you know, sometimes people can't stick to the kind of demanding schedule just with life stuff of being like, oh, I have to go do this or that. So there's always like a you know, always looking for people that are there just in case. But I would say all in all, it's actually pretty consistent.
Because I was going to ask the follow-up question to that was when we had Aaron on the show, he mentioned like feeling responsible for his employees and kind of like the weight that comes with that. Is this something that you feel with your channel?
Yeah, I mean, 100%. I mean, like, the thing too is like, God, I mean, like, you guys know you're working on other people's ideas and stuff, and you want to feel like you're secure and that like you're riding a good horse, I guess. So it's like whenever a video doesn't perform as expected and stuff, it makes me feel like I've let the team down, because usually the visuals and stuff are always down. So it's always, I mean, like always trying to make sure that you feel like you're not wasting people's time, I think, is a big thing, because it's not a selfish project. It's not ever just for me. It's for me and the team. You know, it wouldn't be possible without them, and I just respect the time and the effort that they give to just the ideas that I'm trying to make, and we all put so much time and effort into them. So I just want to make sure that they're definitely taken care of, and that I can be the best kind of boss or director that I can be. It's always very, very frustrating, and just trying to get that balance of being like, God, did I fuck up here? I don't know. Like, hey, so hey, how you doing? And I try to be, you know, pretty open with people too about being like, hey, how you doing? Are you feeling like, how's this feel? You know, all that kind of stuff, because you don't want to be somebody who's just like go without ever treating anybody like a human being and stuff. So
yeah, I mean, it's so beyond anyone's control over like what does well, right? And so it's like, I think
100%.
I think everyone knows that, and I think there's no I get the feeling as somebody who's taking lead and is in charge of, and it's, you know, your shorts at the end of the day, but it's like, I'm sure everyone on your team understands that even if something doesn't do as well as you might have hoped, it's like YouTube is just fucking awful. It's just like so unpredictable and so bizarre, and
it is, and it's a game. I mean, that's the biggest thing.
Is.
It's like YouTube itself is it's not just being like, God, this person's funny. It's everybody that is successful on YouTube is playing the game of YouTube and knows exactly what's going on. They may bitch about what's going on. They may be like, this app's, you know, this website's terrible, but they're playing along with like what the website is demanding for a successful channel, you know.
I'm gonna like say something that's maybe outrageous.
Oh boy.
But do you feel like making content for YouTube would be similar to being a driver for Uber, if that makes any sense?
It's a stretch.
Like in terms of like
the demand, and how like your boss is not a real boss, and it's like all on you, and you don't have like the benefits that the platform doesn't give you benefit, and like all that kind of stuff, you know, like the nitty-gritty of things.
I think the only problem with like, especially running a YouTube channel and stuff, is just the it's just the demanding schedule. Because I think that like, even with, I guess, Uber, or like, one thing I miss about like regular jobs and stuff is like that fun, stressful moment. Like, I only worked in LA for a handful, like just like a couple jobs, and I couldn't find any work or anything. So, but one thing that was always cool was that camaraderie, and that like, oh my God, I'm working with all these talented artists, and I feel like I'm growing. And then it was, you clock out, I'm done. Yeah. And you go home. This is just like, it's just this unrelenting like feeling of being like, God, I have to go. Oh God, is this gonna do well? Like, you're kind of always in your head about what's the next move. And also, it's never like, that project's done. Cool. Yeah. Well, let me sit. It's like, all right, what's the next thing? Let's go. We gotta go. Yeah. We gotta go. So it's just, it's very just super demanding, at least for the schedule that I put on myself. I know other people are way more sane and probably smart about it in terms of like mental and sleep schedule health. But
do you think that like, would it be possible to kind of pull back on that schedule, or is this like what you have created is the rhythm that it needs to be at for you to be able to sustain yourself and for your animators to kind of operate, you know?
I mean, the rhythm is very helpful, I think, especially for the goals that I want to do. Like, I mean, like, I think the biggest goal is, first I was competing with like vloggers on the site.
Oh,
that's
real.
impossible.
And I was like, how can I be like, oh wait, so this guy is making animations and they're uploading this and I like them and stuff. And then that was like the big thing. I'm like, how can I do that? And now it's kind of like getting to the realm where I'm like, how can I make this feel like a channel? And I'm trying to get to the spot where it's like being able to help other creators fund stuff and have a platform to where they can put it on, you know, this channel, or they can get their stuff promoted. Like, I don't know, it becomes very dicey and weird. So I've been trying to think of a way to where it's like, how can you feel like this thing can be as like cool as like an Adult Swim or something, or like a, you know, one of those kind of sites. And I obviously don't have the answers or anything, but that's just like where my mind's at, of like, how can we compete with Adult Swim on like, Netflix in terms of like content and what's going on and what's happening. So it's just this like weird evolution of what's going on.
That's like, first of all, that's very impressive.
Yeah.
And
I think you are
second, you are competing, and it's also a huge task. It's it sounds like a lot because you're just one guy competing against like Netflix that has stocks at like, I don't know, what is it, $600 a share or something? Anyway,
I think it becomes less too about the monetary aspect of it and more of just like, I mean, like, obviously you have to have money to survive and stuff. And I don't ever think, I mean, obviously it'll never be like Wall Street wise as big, but it becomes something where it's like, just like the thing about like when you're a kid, you just don't know what you're doing, what's going on. It's cool to think about like, how can I challenge and push myself to new heights and stuff, and how can I inspire others to do things to where I think there's still a negative connotation when it comes to like being a YouTuber or something, but I think YouTube is just like such a beautiful place if you can exist in it and you can feel appreciated in it, for a place of being like, putting your video out there and anybody can see it, because it's just this algorithm that just shits stuff out sometimes. And it's like, if you get a chance, latch onto it. But how do you change that narrative to where it feels like, yeah, actually the artist has the power, and the artist is what drives creativity and not studios and that kind of thing. And not saying that studios are bad, because I mean, obviously great stuff comes out of it, and you have way more like so much more money can go into projects, and people can make, a whole huge team of people can make a living wage. I guess it's just more so being like, I don't know. I mean, maybe you don't even know what I'm saying. It's just it's just a thing about just feeling like power to yourself, feeling like you have a voice in this fight and stuff, and that if I don't want to, I don't have to go into animation in LA or something.
Yeah,
I think that's like really inspiring. And we mentioned the schedule really fast. Is that okay to ask kind of what a typical day and or week looks like for you? Like what's the schedule, the nitty-gritty of it?
Yeah. So I upload on Sundays. So on that same Sunday, I'll figure out what the next video is going to be, usually in a very rough form, like kind of form. And then usually by Tuesday, I'll have a final script done along with a radio play. And then by usually about Wednesday or Thursday, we'll have a finished animatic. Boards will be done. We'll get that going. And then usually by Saturday, I try to get the animation in to, I try to get the animators started. And basically the animators get like, we try to do, so like if we started on, like let's say the Monday, so I try to upload every 2 to 3 weeks. So it's usually like, I don't know, I try to get animators to submit stuff by that usually following Thursday or Friday. So then compositing usually has a day or two. And then usually the audio can be done alongside with compositing with a rough cut of the audio or with the rough cut of the animation. So everything is done by that Saturday. So usually it's like a 12, and sometimes it's like a 12 to 20 day turnaround. That's depending insane. On if we're doing uploading on 3 weeks or if we're doing a 2 week upload.
That's amazing. That's such a crazy turnaround.
It really is, especially because the quality is really high. That's
and it's not something. There's so many times, and the thing too is like we're definitely not. I mean, like we do frame by frame stuff, but it's like the whole thing is just thinking, how can we do this economically to where these animators aren't wanting to pull their hair out and stuff. So it's like a lot of it is rigs, and a lot of it is like thinking about shots economically of like, man, do we need this kind of thing? And then like whenever there's room to play, letting those animators do that to where it's like fun and you can see their style and their kind of own persona come out through that as well. And I think that's what makes like some shots so cool and memorable, and you can kind of feel like it's never like super, super polished. It always has like a little bit of grit to it to where it feels, I don't know, like an indie project. It
feels alive. Yeah, it feels organic, which I think that's the appeal of it being independent. So like, of course you would want to lean into that. We were talking about like, studios, competing with studios, and And I think what's kind of interesting is that like you have the flexibility. I think that you're successfully competing because I think that, and every independent animator is, because I think that what they don't have is the agility and the sort of way to make decisions quickly, to produce stuff quickly. And so like maybe, you know, you and the other independent animators on YouTube aren't hitting the same, obviously it's like not the same length and it's not the same, I don't even want to say it's not the same quality because I think you guys are knocking it out of the park. But I think that speed, it makes you so much more effective of like an audience grabber. Whereas, you know, studio's always lagging behind. Like whatever the hell it is they're doing is 6 months.
You stay relevant. Yeah.
It's frustrating because, you know, like I was listening to that Yotam interview and stuff, and it's just one of those things where it's like, yeah, we love this idea now, and then it's like, well, this is going to go on, we're going to be negotiating or you know, even like getting a contract signed, because it's like, you know, the appeal is still there to be like, oh, I got a show on Netflix or something. But it's just those things of like, God, I hope that they like this idea 6 months from now, or I hope that like, you know, after that. So it just feels like it's just so long. It's just this daunting gauntlet.
And you know, and
at the other side where it's like, oh man,
it's rough. And I think that the process is gonna there's always gonna be hurdles, and there's always gonna be you know, difficulties, and like, but at the very least you are doing what you want to do. And yeah, you're not bound to network executives. You're not bound to whatever, you know, current like regime has decided is the hot new thing. And so like, and I really, but we've been trying to get more and more animators to come on the show, like independent animators, because it's a growing industry, and it's really, I think it's gonna be really kicking the ass of Netflix and all these other places, because like, we've seen that they try to do unique things, they greenlight all these shows, and then they don't support them. And
also to piggyback off what you're saying, Gene, is like, I do think indie animators are successfully competing against big networks, in that the trend that I'm seeing is that big streaming services are like, well, we can't churn out the content as fast as the indie channels. So what the trend I'm seeing is that like they're gonna make TV animation super high budget, because that's the only way to stay relevant and competitive. Exactly. So it's kind of like, we're like, I think TV animation is gonna start looking kind of like the Marvel movies, you know, a couple years from now. And that like, if you want to make something kind of fun and quirky or just different, it's gonna be Newgrounds, YouTube, Twitch, you know.
That's a very interesting point. I think it's true.
It's just one of those things where brands, I think, especially like networks, are finding out that like, if you have the power to make it a Marvel, you know, quality thing, you should, because that's what's going to keep viewers coming back to your platform and stuff. And I think that like, that's the one thing that YouTube has and like social medias have, is that people feel connected to you. Like, I mean, you're like, oh, I love Meatcanyon, I love Hunter, or like that kind of thing, you know, of just being like, there's a face to that. There's not a face really to like, you know, not a lot of people knew who like Mike Laszlo was, or like who, you know, all these other kind of like high end people are in the industry that are kind of like the puppet masters behind stuff. And it's like, people want to feel like they can identify with something. People want to feel like they can, you know, that they're like in on the group, that they're like in your friend group and stuff. And that's like something cool that like makes YouTube stuff. It feels like there's anything and everything is being made, because people's interests go all over the place. You know, I mean, like there's YouTube channels I follow where it's like a guy who reviews like wood cutting axes, and it's like super therapeutic and just like one of those things where you're like, oh my God, this is just heavenly. I like listening to this guy talk. And it's but it just to go in the fact of like, too, it's just like, it's the same thing of like, maybe some guy who's like, man, I'm not the best drawer, but man, I love doing like renders of Blender stuff, and I can do like really funny faces, and I like doing these voices, and it becomes more something where it's like, oh shit, I have a following that like loves these things that I like to make too. Yeah. And that's like one thing that I think networks don't have, is that personality that captivate people in that way. and you can get that camaraderie, and it doesn't feel like you're like, it kind of feels like people who are maybe like fanboying over like Nike or something weird,
Yeah.
or if you've ever been to like an office
Yes.
job. Like I worked at whenever I went broke in LA, I moved to Utah, and I worked at this solar panel company called Vivint Solar. And
How was that? How was it like? And did you ever?
awful.
And did you like? Okay, was that fruitful in any way to your writing? Was there like? Were you like? Do you ever think about that experience and draw inspiration from it?
Yeah, definitely. I think like it's everything. I mean, like definitely every living experience. I think if anything, it just like it's just such a different world in Utah, man. It's just like such a different vibe, especially just like with religious restrictions and that kind of thing. It's just this place where it feels like so otherworldly. So yeah, definitely. I think that there was definitely some times where you're just like, where the fuck am I? What is happening? So I think that it definitely affected it. But there was people at that Vivint Solar place, or that solar panel company, where it's like they would wear their merch every day, and they'd be like, "This place is so great," almost like a movie.
So weird.
Where you're like,
really?
and it's so odd.
so
it feels so
creepy.
like NPC-ish. So that's what I mean. Is like you can't. I don't think you can get that. Like I feel like if there was an animator, even if I was working on like I don't know, if you're working on like an HBO show or something, and you're just like, God, isn't HBO the best? You'd be like, what? Like, what do you mean? Like, I like the creator or whatever, you know, or like I love the people that are involved, but it's never really God, I love Netflix or something like that kind of vibe.
Have you ever actually considered like pitching, or have you pitched, and do you have any interest in trying to pursue that like TV route?
Yeah, I've pitched before. I've pitched, and I don't know. It's never like I'm very comfortable with where I'm at, but also just like I have a wife, and I'm trying to think of like financially as well,
sure.
like
Yeah.
what's beneficial to me and stuff, and like those kind of things, and also just like being able to collab with like more people that are like way more talented than me and stuff on like things, and have those kind of connections. So it has been something, but yeah, I mean I've definitely pitched before. I've like pitched to like sci-fi. I've like, this is even before my YouTube popped off or anything. It's just been like weird little pitches here and there and stuff, and just like that whole grinding aspect. It really, I think that really cemented my love, even for like when I hear people complain about like YouTube and stuff. I'm just like, fuck, man, it's rough out there too. Like there's no perfect spot ever.
No.
Like it's really like, where are you happy to fight the fight and then fight
Pretty
there?
much.
You know, because there's going to be people too who are like, yeah, fuck YouTube, I'd rather just pitch. And that's cool too. You know, I think that's great. But I think it's like being honest with yourself and being like, oh, am I pitching, or am I trying to pursue this YouTube thing because I feel like it's going to give me lots of followers, or am I pitching because it feels like more of like, this is the respected route to take or something.
Yeah.
I think it's just about being honest with yourself and like what your own interests and what you're wanting out of, you know, your one go around in life, I guess, where you want to spend your time.
Yeah.
at.
I think that's super, super valuable. And like, I'll be honest. Like I went into the industry with that sort of mentality of like, this is the right way to do it, you know? Cause like I started out in the Flash animation scene, and I had moderate success. And if I had kept that up, I might have been in a different place. Who knows? I don't live life with regrets, but it's like, I chose to go into into a different path of like pitching and getting a show. And over the years and through all the sort of failures and disappointments, it's like now I'm looking at what you and a lot of other people are doing, and I'm like, well, shit, there's an industry here there's an audience, I should say. There's an audience that is really receptive to like original stuff. And now that with Patreon and you know, Twitch streaming and all these things, there's all these channels to sustain yourself in a pretty healthy way. Like, yes, there's the pressure of maintaining that, but I got burnt the fuck out on TV animation, and so I'm not even working in TV right now. And
oh, really? What are you doing?
I'm
then?
working in mobile games. It's like I'm a manager of a team, and it's great because I'm not tired at the end of the day of drawing or So it's like I found a balance for myself that works for me for the near future. And I'm still doing a lot of other creative things. And so that's the balance that I've had right now, but I would love to get into I would love to get paid to just work on my own stuff and do what you do, like delegate. But I know that like from what you've talked about and what I've seen, it's like I said earlier, like it still is a challenge. And so I really love what you said, because it really comes down to what do you want to do? Like, what will make you happy?
Yeah, what do you want to do? And no matter where, like, it just kind of goes back to what we were saying earlier. I mean, no matter where you go, what you do, it's going to be a fight.
It's gonna,
like, there's no such thing about being like that whole thing about like waking up every day and you're just like, yes,
yeah, this is it.
Like, oh my God, that is not true. Don't ever be looking for that, because that shit is gone. Like, I don't know if it ever existed, but it's just one of those things of like, that grass is always greener mentality. Get that out of your head, because it's like, it's never like, oh, once I achieve this, I'll be happy.
Yeah, no.
Once I do this or move here. It's just about like the constant staying in the middle of being like, I know this is what I want to do. This brings me the most happiness in my life. And I want to just like ride that road and see where it takes me and stuff.
Definitely. I think that's great. We like to ask our guests how they deal with creative block, and how do you deal with it, and how does it feel to you?
God, creative block fucking sucks. Like,
especially at the pace you're going,
worst,
man. Like I'm sure it hits you all the time.
I can't, like, wait, just like let's just kind of reel it back for a second. How long have you been doing the YouTube channel? Like actually,
I've been doing 2 to 3 week uploads since the middle of the middle of the year 2019.
Goddamn.
So about almost 3 years.
That's nuts.
That is such a feat. I hope everybody that's listening can appreciate that. Do you, like, right now, do you feel burnt out? How do you feel?
I felt burnt out for, I'm not even, I don't, there was like a severe depression and burnout phase all of last year. I think like right at the end of 2020, I had like a really good video and it was just like lost. Like I was just like, I don't know what I'm going to do. Like I'm just kind of like in this spot where I'm like, oh God, like everything, like nothing seems satisfying. I'm just kind of like trying to figure out. And I think that the best way to combat that, well, one, it's like you got to take time off.
Yeah,
you just got to. And I am living in this irrational fear, and I know it's irrational, but it's hard when you like I say, you just have just all these things that are like glaring in your face of just like, you got to pay this, you got to like your compositor's asking for work, like is your animators are like relying on you and stuff. Becomes a bit harder to like want to take, because I feel selfish, even though it's just human, nature to like relax. And like you're constantly, when you're producing things, I like to think that you grab a big full sponge that's full of water, and for your production you squeeze it all out and it's done, and then you kind of like sit there, you drop it back in, you let it refresh, and you kind of do that again. It's like with what I'm doing, it's kind of like really, just like squeezing, twisting, and like trying to get every last drop out. And I think that like when you go through that, you have to take those breaks and like just kind of say fuck off to art for a little bit, and you need to do other things that make you happy and like serve you and stuff. Live healthy, sleep, like get good sleep is a big thing. My friends have like scared me. I've like researched, like they keep telling me about like sleep stuff, and I'm like, I'm gonna die when I'm like 38 years old because
honestly,
like,
I will.
I
know, for real. I feel like I've started taking melatonin probably 2 months ago, and I've been able to sleep deeper. Like I don't wake up. I used to wake up from 3 to 5 times throughout the night. So now I don't wake up, and I don't feel nearly as depressed as than I have.
True. It's
isn't
just,
that crazy?
It's just science. It's so fucking weird how simple. It's kind of it's with anything though. Like it's just like God. It's just so frustrating. I'm such a fat piece of shit. I sit there and I eat all this horrible stuff, and I'm like, well, I just don't understand why. And it's like, dude, just eat good, sleep, go to the gym, work out, do your own thing, and then like live healthy, and you will be. Just that alone will make you already so much happier. Even I know, like, obviously you're gonna have your hiccups and your struggles and stuff, but if you're mentally strong enough to like do those other things, it makes dealing with the hiccups and the speed bumps in your life a lot easier and a lot more manageable. So but in any regard, like besides the obvious, things that I love to do is I like to do stuff outside of animation. I like to like draw physically or like do ceramics. I like basically like it brings me a lot of joy still making stuff. Like I just like making like shit especially for myself in those burnout times, like not really posting about it It's all these things that are just like they exist in
Yeah.
my little studio, and it's just
Yeah.
stuff that you're just like, oh, that's nice. I did that for me, and then you just like put on a nice album or whatever, and you just like zone out, and then like almost always, if you can actually be honest to that response and not cheat it, usually always you'll be like, oh, you know what's kind of a fun idea is, and like you kind of comes back to you. It's very weird. It's like you just kind of come back from the darkness a bit, and you kind of have a bit more perspective, and things seem to be a little bit more interesting, or the ideas present themselves to you, I think.
It's like the comfort. It's not, and I don't mean just food, but it's like the comfort things, you know, where it's like, yeah, I'll put on like some rom-com from the 2000s that and work on Gunpla, and I'm just like, and it's like enough of a detachment from what I normally do, and it's just like calms my mind for an hour or two, and like, and then just like taking a shower, like taking a nice shower. It's like these little things that add up, and like you said, the sleep is huge, and like I coming from an experience of somebody who had bad habits over years, got like past a lot of them. Like I started working out and I started eating really healthy. The moments where I let it slip, it's like you said, it's like you don't know, you're like, why do I feel shitty all of a sudden? It's like, oh right, I haven't been eating well. Like you start to like notice the things that you were slipping up on, and it's like, man, this stuff like there's a strong correlation between diet and sleep and exercise. Like it's and
I mean, it's just,
and it affects creativity.
It's just so crazy.
Yeah,
it really does. It affects your brain, and like especially just like there's so much interesting stuff of like, God, just like sleep, like actual sleep you get, the actual sleep you get, like REM sleep of it being like actual being like it just associates with like, you know, thought formulation and like how endorphins get pushed through, like all sorts of things of your life. So I just can't stress it enough, because I know as a kid even people would be like, be sure to get sleep, and you're like, oh fuck off, dude, you old piece of shit, I know what I'm doing. Like,
yeah,
you know what I mean? Like I just exactly. And because when you're young you can stay up, you know, wake up at 5 a.m, go to bed at like 7 a.m. the next morning, sleep for 2 hours, and you're just like, dude, I feel great.
Yeah. Well, it's a point of pride.
But then
it's like, I'll sleep when I'm
but
dead.
then you sit there.
It's like,
you'll go through college, you go through those things. You'll live a little bit. You'll get a regular job. You'll be working, and then like things the gears start to rust up a bit, and you're like, damn, I got this weird tick in my back now and stuff like that. My ass is 28 years old. I've abused the fuck out of my body, and I'm just like, it's just like an old rickety roller coaster at this point. It's just about half near tapped on it.
It's not
so
too late. Yeah, you could definitely.
Yeah, no, it's all just, you gotta start today type shit.
Sure.
Instead of tomorrow.
I love that your friends keep sending you sleep like scientific like analysis or whatever. Like, how much of those do you get? Like, how many of those did you read?
Too much, to the point where they're just like, isn't this interesting? And I'm like, oh, let me check it out. And then after a while I was like, god damn it, this is a huge like a flare up in the air. Like
they're trying to tell you something. This is code. This is a friendly way. It's so funny.
We got a few questions on Twitter that I wanted to ask.
Okay.
From two different people, as more or less the same question, at CartsQT and at Cash. They were asking, basically, what are the benefits or disadvantages to working independently versus working for a studio, or, you know, YouTube versus TV? Because you've done both, right? You've worked in TV briefly?
Very briefly. Okay. And mostly for, my biggest contract was like for like amusement park, like this amusement park cartoon thing. Okay. So you have, that was in Burbank, so I'll count it.
Okay, no,
that's a point.
Fuck it, yeah. So how do you?
I feel like that can thread back to your content, amusement park.
Yeah, it does. So yeah, how do you feel like the differences are from your perspective?
I think that YouTube and stuff is obviously like there's a thing to be said about like what is it? I was trying to say this too earlier with like college and stuff. You know, I might be like, oh, take a loan out and stuff, but college and being in an industry and being around people helps you socially. You could be the most talented artist in the world. If you are not a pleasant person to talk to and you don't have good social skills and you just like, that is so vitally important in life and in any like regard. So it's like working in a studio and stuff, was great. Like I loved being able to feel connected with people. I liked being able to feel like I could understand more perspectives. I could get more insight to other people's lives outside of myself. I thought was important. But at the same time, just me, it was something where I grew a little bit resentful because I was just like, man, I just really want to work on my own shit. Like I don't want to have to work on this or whatever. It pays me and I'm like stoked. I'm happy for that. But so with YouTube, the biggest perk and the perk that keeps me going is that I fight for myself. Mm-hmm. Like, I mean, people can hate you, people can hate your stuff. They can talk all the shit they want. But at the end of the day, as long as you are happy with what you're making, it is so much easier to be like, to wake up and be like, cool, I'm going to do this today because I'm fighting for myself. I'm not fighting for somebody else, or I'm fighting for like rent or something. It's fighting for like your kind of artistic vision and your kind of creative voice. And I think it becomes a lot easier to like make stuff.
I'm gonna jump in for a second. You're talking about hate. Do you get hate? And if yes, how do you deal? How do you deal with it? I haven't seen it.
I don't even know how I deal with it. You just kind of have to deal with it. There's gonna be people who just hate. That's just with anybody in life. Like there's no way everybody's gonna like your stuff. And it sucks. I mean, like I put as much effort as I possibly can in. So when you see people who just like disregard what you do, they're like, oh, it's the same fucking thing every time. Mm-hmm. You have to realize that like, fuck that guy.
Yeah. Who cares?
And just like move on. Like really, you and it seems stupid and childish, but at the same time, it's just like pay attention and pay mind to people who are giving you actual criticism. Mm-hmm. Take that. And sometimes people are going to give you critiques that you don't agree with, and that's okay with too. Like just because something's constructive doesn't necessarily make it true to yourself or like your vision of what you're trying to do. So it's like pay attention to people that you are close with, your friends who are giving you constructive criticism that you appreciate and you respect their opinion, and pay attention to people who are like supportive to you. I am terrible at that. Like I'm really bad at like, there'll be tons of comments, people being like, oh, I love this. This is great. And then there's one guy who's just like, dude, guy's falling off. This guy fucking sucks. And that ruins me. I'm like, oh, God. Or whatever. But that's just the way it is. And that's just, it's ebbs and flows. But I think it's just all about, you just got to say fuck the people that are trying to like just be mean and not help your creative journey, and you have to just like push through.
My rule of thumb is generally is like, are you paying my bills? Then I don't give a fuck. Like it doesn't matter. Like
and the thing too is like there's times, especially with like artist stuff and with mean comments and shit, there'll be one person where you're like, before you even upload something or you make something or show it to somebody, you'll be like, oh man, I shouldn't have used that red for the truck. As like, not like, just as an example. And there's gonna be one comment who's just like, what a fucking stupid red to use for that truck. And you're like, ah, fuck.
They noticed.
Yeah, exactly. Oh God, I'm a hack. I'm a fraud. That kind of thing.
I almost get a sense of comfort from that stuff where it's like, I knew this thing was not good. I knew that I didn't do my best in this section. And when somebody calls it out, I'm like, yeah. Like, there's something where I'm like, okay.
Yeah, that feels very rational. I feel like a lot of times with it, especially like there's this weird mentality with YouTube and me of like, if something doesn't get 10 million views, I'm like, it's a flop, right, or something.
By the way, I was just gonna say, like, a lot of cartoons on TV do not get like 10 million
they don't even
views
get a million,
or 5 million views. If they get a million, they're happy. It's like,
yeah, that's what I'm saying. You're competing successfully because you're hitting numbers that they wish they could get. Yeah.
Yes.
And the thing too is that it's if you can step outside and you can be a person. I have some friends. I have a buddy, Tom. One of my good friends, Tom, is like so good about like having this like steel trap mind where he's just like, well, he's just like, if something like, let's say, usually like a good standard for like YouTube animations is like usually like 1 million views is like,
sure,
yeah,
people are usually happy whenever you hit that million, and you're like, okay, cool, like it feels respectable, it looks good on paper, right,
and it's better than most TV.
Exactly. Apparently that too, but
yeah.
Then my buddy will be like, if you're trying something new, and let's say it even just gets like 200,000, that's still like 200,000 plays that thing got. Yeah. So it's like having that perspective and just being like, be grateful for the kind of views that you do get now, and also like keep in mind that like you don't have to constantly shift that goalpost, because that's really hard on terms of online stuff. Of like, once you hit a certain peak, there becomes a thing where you'll see a lot of like a public narrative too that happens of like, oh, well, he hit this high, but he hasn't been up there since or whatever. But that doesn't really fucking matter as long as like you're happy, you're paying your bills, you treat people good.
Yeah.
Who gives a fuck? You know,
It's like
it's not a contest. There's no contest to anything that's going on, but it feels like it a lot of the time.
Yeah, it does. And I think that comes even if we see that in like music, or used to see it in music, where there would be a one-hit wonder and then they never get that hit. But it's like I've realized that a lot of those acts, they have very successful careers. They're just not, you know, number one on the radio, but they're like paying their bills and then some, touring and whatever. It's just like, yeah, they're not in the they're not in the mainstream, but like you don't have to have constant hits. You just have to have consistency, right? Like that's the important thing. It's just consistency and like building your audience.
I think it's just being true to just like what you want to do.
Yeah.
Like I think that like as long as you are honest with your creative journey as an artist, there just is like no wrong you can do. You can't don't sabotage yourself or others and means to get to a place. Like be honest with yourself. If you have to work a day job and you're making stuff on the side, I mean, more power to you. A lot of people do that. I find it very admirable when people do that. I think it's cool. I think that like, you know, just be honest to yourself, whatever you want to make, you know, don't bend the knee for anybody. Just like try to keep growing as a person and as an artist. And that's all you can do.
Definitely.
That's just literally all you can do.
At K Makes Things asked, what was it like moving out to LA for animation? Was it a big culture shock?
Yeah, I literally, when I moved to LA, it was 3 weeks after I graduated college. I had like no money. I moved to LA twice. The first time I went and I lived with an aunt that lived in the area for a month. And then I tried to get this job and I lied out of, I lied out of pride, I guess, being like, yeah, I got it, I'm good, because I could only stay at her like this like retirement community for a certain amount of time. So I was homeless for a while and I was like, this sucks. I'm gonna go back.
Fuck, what did that look like? Like, were you, I don't know, because
I was in Carlsbad, California, which is like it's like closer to San Diego. It's like 3 hours south, I think, or something. And I would commute to LA. And you guys know Sean? You know Sean Glaze?
Yes.
So when I would commute up there and I would try to meet with people, and Sean was one of the guys, and I got to meet, and I was like, oh, it's really cool hanging out with you. And then luckily enough, I was like, oh my God, finally. I was like, oh, I'm gonna get, which I don't know if he wants to share this stuff about the fist head stuff that he did, but the Titmouse was getting ready to do that show for him, but then like the week that they were getting ready to do it, Adult Swim pulled out on it. So I was like, oh, fuck. Yeah. So then it became something more like, okay, we'll have to move back. And I moved back to home, and it was just a huge, like, humbling experience of like, oh, okay, yeah, it's not like there's, you know, another thing of like, people aren't just going to randomly care about you or your situation. Like, you're going to have to fight, and you're going to have to like grow and make people like want to hire you and do stuff. But then the next time, like maybe like 8 months later, I got another shot at this that was the roller coaster or the amusement park animation thing. And
wait, was it Wonder Park? No,
or amusement park. It was this little studio in Burbank called Mammoth Vision.
Okay.
It's right by the IKEA in Burbank, which we can bloop that out. But but it's it was awesome. I mean, like, I was just like, oh my God, I did it finally. I went out there and I showed him like one mouth pack, and I was like, I know what I'm doing. Like, so, like, I'm just like not super confident. Like, out of all the people in LA, it was like, I was always just like, how the fuck are you doing that type stuff? So I like, I got this job and I was doing it, and it was cool, but it was just not, you don't really know anybody, and it's hard to break into friend groups, especially if it feels like you are, hey man, would love to hang out with you and talk about, you know, possible job openings, or like, like, hey, I hear you work at Netflix. Is it cool if we want to get a drink? Because it feels parasitic in a way, and it feels like, oh, well, you're just wanting to use me to get into this thing. But I was just such a huge fan of all these artists. And I know you've had Ian on here. I met Ian there was across the street from Sprouts, there was that little, in Burbank, there was that diner. It's closed now, but we met up with him, and I was like, dude, you have 1,200 followers on Instagram. How the fuck do you do it? And he's like, I have no idea what you're talking about. Like, I don't know what is happening. So I got that gig, and I did that gig was like a 3 or 4 month long contract, and I was a big reality check there too. That it's like, oh, you don't just like get a job. It's like you're constantly grinding contracts and like trying to set yourself up. And if you're good enough, I've had, Sean's a great example of somebody who's just like, he's gonna get work. Like there's no way he's not. So he can schedule times where he's like, oh, I'm gonna take a bit of a break or something if I want to, which is cool if you can get to that spot. But after a while, I just couldn't find any work, and I was lived in a studio apartment in LA, and I was working at overnight stocking at Ralph's, and I was at the bakery at Sprouts. I was like, dude, I'm going fuck. I went broke again, and and I had to leave my apartment. That's when I was like, I'm not going back to Kansas City. Like I just can't face that reality again. So I was like, fuck it. I had a buddy that lived in Utah, and I was like, is there any good jobs out there? And he's like, oh yeah, they just opened this big solar panel thing. So I just applied on that, the drive over, and did the interview like 2 days later in Utah, and that was that.
Side note, I heard that Utah is hiring a ton of like tech. I don't know.
Adobe's out there. Adobe, it's crazy.
Yeah. I don't know. I was just like doing some like quick research for the personal project, but I was like, what if it happened in Utah? I've only been to Moab, so I don't know anything about Utah. But yeah, I was just
but I guess more of the story is I actually I liked LA. I thought it was cool. I liked it more than I worked in New York for a bit, and I thought that LA was cooler than New York, and there was just way more, especially at a young age. It's cool being in that environment of like people are into cartoons professionally, and then you're like, oh, cool. And like there was just a bunch of great drinking draws, like Hyperion. I don't even know if Hyperion Tavern's open anymore, but there's just a bunch of great stuff that I just enjoyed. So I liked it a lot. Just couldn't afford it.
Yeah.
Just too damn expensive.
No, it's brutal.
Yeah,
I mean, if you can, actually, most people should try to make a living somewhere else. And so, like, it's, especially now that everything's remote, like, trying to have a normal life in LA is pretty damn hard because it's just constantly looking for work, like you were saying. And I think that there's no need to pursue that if you want to just like make your own stuff, especially like you just don't. And there's people who I see that move to LA and they are independent, but then they end up not being able to keep as much of the money that they're making because they're living in these expensive ass apartments. It's like,
well, especially if you are a independent artist, you need to like research taxes, research like how that affects your income and stuff, because it's not like, oh my God, I got paid this amount. Well, you get like 40% almost 40% of that's going away.
Oh yeah.
To like taxes and stuff. And that's another reason too, that was like with LA, I'm like, the state tax is just, I mean, it's robbery. Like I couldn't even fucking believe it. I'm in Texas now because fuck the state taxes. That's why I was like, I'm just going to go to Texas and like try to retain that savings account and like, all that kind of shit. So, yeah, I just can't believe it. And I hear they keep trying to raise it too. So,
oh yeah. Well, I heard that a lot of people from California are moving to Texas.
Yeah, I've heard that.
So, yeah, probably.
God, it's brutal. Yeah. If it does feel like it's becoming like a new little LA. I think Netflix is having a thing out here, and like so many big companies are. I'm in Austin, so it's like right in that new tech and production city thing. It's
kind of like it's blue, right? So it's kind of like friendly for LA people, I guess.
Yeah. It definitely. I mean, like you get in on the outskirts and you get some, good old boys or whatever in the outskirts of stuff.
That's
but
every state.
I think that like it's a very open city. It's very. I mean, I think it's incredibly inviting of everybody, which is cool.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like LA doesn't get real shitty outside. It's like California is like so fucking red, and then it's just you go to LA and San Francisco, and it's like these weird.
Yeah. And San Diego.
And
There's just a bunch of big cities.
San Diego actually is pretty fucking red. I think it's
really
it's surprising.
It's the best city in California.
Yeah.
Without
this
a
is
doubt,
the political part of Creative Block, you guys. So this is all of our political hot takes.
I like San Diego a lot, but there is a ton of conservative people there too.
Yeah, it's just old people.
It is a lot,
but it's a beautiful city. Yeah. It's just a shit ton of old people who like who are just like, you know what, Florida's too hot.
Yeah.
I don't want to live here. It's that kind of
Yeah.
thing. So it's
It is very pretty though. I like visiting a lot, and I don't know. I might retire there. it is very nice.
it's just beautiful.
Yeah. What are your long-term goals? Like, do you want to keep maintaining this schedule? Do you want to keep doing the independent thing, or?
No, God no.
Nice.
I think I think I want to get to a spot to where, one, I feel like financially I don't need to, like, I don't know, keep this grind up to keep something going. I think that I want to, like, the second channel that I started is very much a monetary system of, like, making it more personality based, so you like can see my face, I have a soul, and kind of thing.
Interesting, yeah.
Make goofy content while still doing like sponsors and stuff that like are good for getting some revenue in for new cartoons, that kind of stuff. But like, I mean, like, I just want to do everything. I just want to like feel like it's like if I want to like sit down and be like, I'm just gonna make a puppet production for a local theater, I'll feel like I want to be able to do that and just like say fuck it. I know a big goal for me this year is I would just want to make like a really well done 15-minute short film, like live action horror short film would be awesome. And other than that, I mean, I don't know, like I just want to have fun, and I just want to feel like I'm growing as an artist and growing as, you know, just an artist. Just want to keep evolving. I don't want to feel complacent. That's like the biggest fear I have, and I think that's like a reason why I'm like addicted to that pain, is like, it's nice feeling like you're struggling and you get that reward and you're like, oh yeah. And I don't want to feel like that. I really do enjoy that. I like that give and pull of it all. I like bitching about how much hell I'm in. And then I also like being like, God damn, it was worth it. Well, back to the drawing board or whatever. So it's like, it's a give and take, but it definitely isn't something that is substantially, it's not meant for a long-term thing. I think it's done its purpose of like garnering an audience, and I think it's like time to I guess start harvesting on the benefits of having like a larger audience and doing stuff more for myself versus like the algorithm and trying to like view chase.
I think it's really smart.
And all that kind of stuff.
Do you feel like the amount of content you put out, because it's a lot, is enough that it for passive income to just kind of carry you through if you have a rough time? Like, does that mean, I mean, I don't know if that question makes sense.
No, I don't think so. I think that like,
okay.
I think that like it's enough body of content to where it makes, when I make it an upload, it gives them all a little bit of a boost because of the algorithm. People watch that video, maybe they go and watch another one, but it's like, I mean, you really have to like continuously upload. Like it's always like,
damn, it's
just this like, you know, I mean, like it really is. And you know, some people with certain kind of content or whatever people do, and like maybe they have just this huge, crazy dedicated following on Patreon, to where it's like, oh, I don't give a fuck about like really the YouTube revenue as much as just like I have this awesome fan base and I'm making like, I don't know, 10,000 a month, and that gets me by just okay, and I can make my films and I put it out there and I garner new patrons off that. But for me, I'm just trying to work with YouTube. I'm basically trying to capitalize on all of it for whatever kind of like long-term goal that is, of like a film, or like, because that's, I mean, there's just so much stuff that goes into it, of like all of these things have like a rippling effect of like, if you do good on YouTube and you're like, man, I really want to work for A24, or I want to like really want them to produce my thing. You now have like an analytical sheet of like, this is what I know I can produce and do and stuff. And that also goes to show with like, you know, economic numbers for companies. If you're trying to do stuff for like, man, I really want to make like a statue or something, and to feel like people can maybe like, you can get like loans off that way, or you can do this. So it's just, it's trying to give yourself the most options, you know. That doesn't mean that it has to be for everybody, but for me, I just like having that aspect of feeling like I have so much room to play with.
I like the metaphor you gave of like the harvesting. Like you've planted the seeds and you've grown the crops, and at a certain point you have to just like harvest, and you know, it's like, and I think that's a good way of thinking about it, is some people are just always planting more and planting more and planting more, and it's like, I'm gonna keep this metaphor going as long as I can. Eventually you're gonna ruin the soil, you know, like it's just like how it's true. Like even with farming, like you have to eventually just like harvest and let the soil heal.
Harvest, and you also have to realize to get those benefits that I mean, like you have to have those seeds to keep the metaphor going. You have to have your season of prepping the fields and doing that kind of thing. So it's like you have to put that much work in to get. It just doesn't come with like, you know, a little bit of this and that. It takes time and it takes work and stuff, but it is, depending on where you want to go and what you want to do, in my opinion, it's worth it.
How much time did it take for your channel to take off? You know, like to get to where, you know, to get that huge bump?
Yeah. Man, I was very, I mean, like with everybody that does well, it's just a little bit of luck or whatever. But I mean, I didn't have anybody like, it wasn't like a large channel. From what I remember in August, I want to say maybe like August or July, I posted this video, which is still the most viewed video on my channel. It's When You Wish Upon a Star. It's like a Pinocchio parody thing.
That's funny. So that's your most watched one.
I think it's just I think it's just because people come in, they're like, "What's his most viewed video?" And like it kind of gets residual views off that. But it's really, I mean, like I made it in I think 3 hours or something. Like it was very
because it's like the drawings are great, but it's a very simple video.
Super simple. And a lot of those early 2019 videos, it's character standing. It's very harkening back to Metalocalypse, Aquatine.
Yeah.
It's character standing and talking, and they look funny, and that is enough. And that's like something that, you know, and then after a while you see people, because then people start seeing, they're like, oh well, fuck, it's just like super simple. But then the next upload you have help, and now the video looks great. It's just like it's just a continuous evolution. But to go back, I guess, to the statement was, I had 700 subscribers on YouTube in like I think July or August of 2019, and then like I released that video. It really didn't do anything. And I was like, okay. And like 3 weeks later, I woke up and I think I had like 30,000 subscribers. And I was like, what the fuck is going on? Wow. And apparently some person, they wrote like an article about the Guillermo del Toro Pinocchio he was working on. And they shared my video and then it got onto Reddit. And
interesting.
It was doing that. But then when I was working in New York, I had a buddy, or like this producer, Lauren. She does L cartoons on YouTube. She's like a storytime person. She was like, man, whenever I hit it big the first time, I really wish I would have like made something sooner to capitalize on the algorithm. So immediately I like went downstairs and I made a video, like another one. And like, it was like, and ever since then, and then by the end of that year, so that was August. So then by December, I mean, I was probably at like 180,000 or something, and then January I was in 200 or 180,000. Then by January I was in 200,000, and then by the end of 2020, I think by the end of 2020 I was at like 2 point something million or something, and now we're coming up to 4 million. So it's just like, I mean, usually it's around 150 to 200,000 subs a month is usually what I'm pulling in.
That's amazing. That's really amazing. That's really bonkers. Wow.
Just trying to capitalize off of luck, you know?
Yeah.
That's really what you gotta see.
But that's how it works. That's how it works. Even in this industry, like even, you know, it's all like you gotta be ready for when the time comes, and you were
literally,
you know, yeah,
you're gonna have an opportunity to where, if you put yourself out there, you know, even in the industry, you know, I was lucky enough to even get that job and stuff, and that's just because I put myself out there and I socialized. I made contacts with people to where when something came along, they're like, "Hey, do you want it?" And you take it. You know, it's that kind of thing. So, yeah, I mean, it's been a crazy ride, but it's been cool, man. I mean, it's like I love going back sometimes whenever I'm like, man, I really don't like what I'm making or something. And going back and looking at like stuff from 2019 or like, you know, that kind of thing, and being like, fuck, this sucks. Yeah. Like I'm making so much better stuff now. Yeah. So it's like having that perspective too, to like appreciate your own growth, I think is cool.
Absolutely.
Oh, 100%. That's so important. That's so important. Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Is there anything you want to plug while you're on here?
Fuck, I mean, if you like weird cartoons, I have a Meatcanyon channel, and I do like drawing videos and not like tutorials or anything, but just like goofy comedy drawing stuff and other animations on my second channel, Papa Meat. If you want to give that a check out.
Do you have TikTok?
No, I got banned. Banned from there, so I have one there, but I don't really ever.
Okay.
God, I fucking hate TikTok so much. It's just such a headache. I hate it too, because I'll be scrolling through, I'll post something and I'll scroll through, and like mine will get like 1,000 likes, and I'll be like, okay. and I'll scroll through, and then I'll see one of my animations, or like the same animation I post that has like 400,000 likes, and you're like, "Fuck me, dude! Come on!" Like,
yeah, it's a nightmare, and it's like it's unfortunate that we have to all kind of bow to it because it's kind of the hot
no, I
new
mean
thing,
it's the biggest thing ever.
Yeah, but it is a clusterfuck, and like I will occasionally like try to read up on strategies and stuff, and people will literally just repost the same thing over and over until it like hits, and it's like that's a good system. that's definitely a sign of a good system.
And that's the thing, and it's just the whole thing too of like that app. It's like there's so many good people on it, so many like creative and funny people, and it's just, I mean, like it's the same with YouTube, but I think the only problem with TikTok for me is just like it puts it on the same level. Like I have to consciously click a video on YouTube or like have it be thrown at me versus like TikTok. I'll see something super funny, like a sketch, and then the next one will be like, I don't know, like a guy farting in the bathroom or something.
Yeah.
It's all on the same playing field, which is cool, but at the same time, it's just like, it makes it's hard because it just feels like a huge dump. It does in a way, but
I think that it's become the ultimate. This is the dump on TikTok hour. I think that it's become an ultimate version of the idea of a feed, and I don't mean that in a positive way, where it's like it's just content with a capital C, and like it's just like shit. You're just scrolling through. None of it actually implants in your head. Like, yeah, you might share it, you might quote it here and there, but it's like it's just so constant when you're on there that it just feels disposable. Like, and everything on there and when it's animation that is so much harder to produce than, like you said, you know, a guy doing a backflip. It's like.
You know, and I think that like the best, and as I've said before too, it's just like with YouTube, it's just knowing how to play the game and stuff, and realize that thing is not going anywhere. It's going to be here. So like one thing that I've learned a lot is that if I find a really funny skit, I try to reach out to the creator and ask them if they're like opening for like writing stuff. I've been trying to be more open to like writing positions and give them an opportunity for some paid work and stuff too, and see if like there can't be more cool ways to collab with more people and like use that as like an awesome way to meet new people.
Yeah,
you know?
Totally.
By the way, I thought your Fiverr video where you gave that prompt for the fanfic, the Zootopia, that was
yeah, that's so fun.
That was crazy.
If you ever want to like make yourself laugh,
oh my
like,
god.
If you ever make yourself laugh, just like write up just nonsense and then have just like go on Fiverr with like $20 and have people like professionally record it. It's so fun. It's so good. It's God, it's good. Yeah, that's the part. I do this series on my second channel called Regretamation, and we just think of like really stupid ideas, and then we like try to outsource it in a way to other people to where when it's a finished product, it's like this, just like, I mean, it's like a regrettable animation type thing. So it's just really, it's a lot of fun.
Amazing. You guys check out Regrettable Animation. It's so funny.
Yeah. Well, that's the end of this creative block. Hunter, thanks for being our guest and sharing your story.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you guys for having me.
And thanks to your listeners. Follow us on Twitter. It's at Creative Block, creative without the vowels, where we ask for drawing prompts and questions to ask our guests. Huge thanks to my sister Clemens for editing the podcast and our producer Malik.
Yeah. If you love our show, then support us on Patreon. Becoming a patron gets you early access to interviews as well as bonus episodes. Click the link in the description of this episode. I've been your host, Gene.
And I was V. Keeping creative, and we'll see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.